I believe in 2017, I saw 10 doctors. So I eventually ended up getting some support after seeing 10 doctors. And the counselor was sort of amazed that I hadn't taken a medical leave or had talked to anybody up until that point. I was diagnosed with MMN after about 7-year road to diagnosis. So I had been seeking answers. It started in 2010, I'd say, with a little twitchy finger that I noticed when I was typing. I would raise my pinky and it would start to like flutter. And then my hand was getting weak, so I went to a neurologist. That neurologist diagnosed me with a trapped nerve, said wrap a towel around it, you'll be fine. And then I got pregnant in 2011 and I started to notice that I had acquired a limp. But I wrote it off to pregnancy, but then once I had the baby, I was still limping and it was getting worse and there was a feeling of really being imbalanced. So then I went back to my doctor and said, I'm limping, I think I need physio or I need some help. And so I tried everything under the sun to try to kind of rebalance myself. Nothing was working. I would go to a physiotherapist, they were perplexed. I went to an osteopath, they were perplexed. And then finally, I ended up going to, of all things, a podiatrist to get insoles. We looked at my legs and I said, oh, look, one of my legs is skinnier than the other. Isn't that weird? And he looked at me and said, that's neurological. You should go back to your doctor. So I went back to my doctor and said, something is still really not right. And am I supposed to kind of live with a pirate leg for the rest of my life? He was actually very empathetic and said, what we're missing here is a plan. He said, I'm going to send you to a different neurologist. And that neurologist wasn't a musculoskeletal specialist, so he couldn't really help me, but he immediately identified, oh, I see you have atrophy on your hand and your leg. That was probably in 2016, and it was the first time for me that I had actually made a connection between the two things that were, in my mind, were two separate things. He then referred me to a musculoskeletal neurologist. He did test for the GM1 antibody, which is often a signal or a marker for MMN. However, it's not always present for people with MMN. And so I did not have that marker. So he said, I'm not really sure. Come and see me in 3 months. So I went back after 3 months and said to him, so tell me again why you don't think it's MMN. And part of the reason I really wanted to do this video is because I had seen a video of a different patient, not in Canada, but elsewhere. And when I saw her talk about her symptoms and her signs, it was like a light bulb moment for me. So the neurologist said, okay, we're going to try you on IVIG, see if you respond. And I responded within days. Within about 5 days, I had people commenting who did not know I had treatment, commenting like, oh, your walking is so much better. What happened? And also just for me, noticing that my grip strength and my hand strength was so much better. So unfortunately, my first reaction was a very bad one in terms of that first dose. For 2 days, I had this insane, I almost call it like a visual headache, like it was like having laser beams shot into your brain. But then once I got past that, the treatment was just, I feel like it was like it unlocked something, like, you know, just literally watching my hand unlock, literally watching my foot unlock was amazing to me. And you never know when you get IVIG if it's gonna, you know, how effective it's gonna be, how quick it's gonna be. For me, I was really lucky that way. I think there's a lot of people who, I know it may take them 6 months to see real improvement, but for me, IVIG was really transformative. My infusion schedule is 2 days a week, every 3 weeks. I move a little slower. I'm certainly not jogging anymore. Still really try to stay fit and active as much as I can, but I also try to take breaks. I think when you have MMN, if you push too hard, you end up sort of paying for it, like the next day or the next 2 days. When you tell somebody that you have this condition, they kind of feel sorry for you. And I don't feel sorry for me. I feel relieved. So I was so relieved. I cannot express to you how relieved I was to have a diagnosis. A diagnosis to me meant this isn't just in my head. This is real. MMN is sort of like a big puzzle, and you're trying to put those pieces together. And it took me 7 years to get, for those pieces to sort of fit together into one diagnosis. I went to my first foundation conference in 2019. For me, that was kind of a big aha moment, just to be in the same room with people who understand the journey, the patient journey that you're going through. I felt I got so much from the foundation and from the community, and I really wanted to help other people because, I feel like I felt alone for so long. And then to find another group that really understood me, that understood what I was going through, that was there to support me. I accept that I have this condition. I accept that it's probably a lifelong condition, but I also accept the positives that have come from the connections that I've made because of MMN. I think the biggest struggle with my journey so far is about really looking okay. When people look at you, they don't necessarily know that you have MMN, which can be a curse or a blessing, depending, right? So it obviously means I'm really lucky. I'm one of the people that responded to IVIG. I function at a really high level. There are things, that I have to explain, even to my own family sometimes. I'm tired, or I'm sorry, I have a bit of brain fog today. So those kinds of little things that kind of, I call MMN the disease of a thousand paper cuts because they're all very kind of small things that may not be obvious to somebody who isn't experiencing it firsthand. But those little things can add up. So I think that that's maybe the hardest part. Many people living with chronic illness are giving their best, are masking some of their symptoms, are trying not to be a stick in the mud, trying to keep up with my kids. So I think it's really important to just have that awareness. I think to the general public, what has really become apparent to me, sometimes if I've walked a really long time, I'll start to limp again, and somebody will notice and say, "Oh, is your leg okay? You're limping." And that kind of deflates me a little bit. So I understand, I think it comes from a place of good intentions, but sometimes not pointing out somebody's, for want of a better word, disability, I think might be actually helpful, because I think sometimes those things can be deflating even though it's coming from a point of concern or care. I think it's not letting the illness define you, allowing the illness to actually give you a newfound empathy, I think, for other people suffering with other conditions, trying to stay positive, trying to find things that you enjoy. I think it's just focusing on what you still can do that will really help you to stay positive and not accepting not like succumbing to the disease, but living with it, I think learning to live with it is really important. Be aware, we're rare, please share.